So back in 2019, I started having this mystery joint problem, and in the spring of 2020, I sort of got on this health kick where I thought that maybe I could solve it with diet. And so I read How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger, and it's kind of like the veganism Bible, and it just made sense to me, you know. So I jumped on the vegan train and I started eating vegan basically for an entire year, and my joint symptoms improved a little bit. I felt pretty good, honestly. Starting out, I cured my allergies and my asthma, so I'm like, yes, like this is the diet, you know, this is like the barefoot shoes of nutrition, right? But then I got to the end of the year and I was just like so burned out because I was working on my first book, and so I couldn't even function. I was just like super depressed, super in pain. Like the pain had like come back and gotten even worse. So I worked with a naturopath, and I did a HTMA for the first time, which, if you don't know, it's called a hair tissue mineral analysis. And it's kind of like the alternative to blood work, because where blood work just looks at like a really thin slice of your nutritional levels. And HTMA takes a look at like the past 3 months. So it's a lot more helpful in terms of figuring out what to eat and everything. But so I did the HTMA, and it's just like all of my levels were just like flatlined. You know, they were at the very bottom of the reference area. And like in the notes of the report, it was like this person is like at risk for suicidal depression or whatever. So not good, you know. So I started introducing meat back into my diet. And then, yeah, for the next few years, I sort of just like oscillated between different diets, and I just couldn't really find anything that would work. And I kept gravitating back towards veganism because it just seemed like the simplest, you know, like most pure diet. And every time I started a vegan diet again, it's just like everything would clear up, you know, my brain fog and whatnot. But then in the summer of last year, this is 2023, I decided to like finally take it all the way. You know, like I had been eating a lot of cooked vegan food, and it was just like unsatisfying to me. Like I would have a bowl of chickpeas and it would just feel like I was eating nothing, you know, I was eating like cardboard or something. So I thought maybe the problem is that I'm like cooking my vegan food. So I went completely raw for 2 months, and I made a video about it. It's probably one of my least popular videos of all time. But I was really happy. I was like hanging out with my van friends, Andrew and Sarah, and just like, you know, the energy and the focus and the creativity was like all maxed out. I was eating like raw pumpkin pie, if you can imagine, and raw wraps, and sprouted quinoa and nuts and seeds and all this stuff. And it felt like I could fast in the morning, you know, like my energy levels were just super stable. But then I did another HTMA at the end of that 2 month period, and I'll show it to you. It was a disaster. Like veganism, especially raw veganism for me, was just a total failure nutrition wise, because all of my levels, like copper and zinc, and magnesium and everything, were just like all at the very bottom of what they could be. And I just felt like if I went any further on this diet, that it was going to start seriously causing major problems for me. And when I got to the end of it, it was like I was starting to have a lot of stomach pain, you know, because I was eating so much raw food. And even though I was sprouting it and soaking it and, you know, dehydrating, etc., I think it was just like too much for my gut to handle. Because if you don't know, like plant foods have what are called anti-nutrients. And essentially, these are defense mechanisms that prevent you from digesting the food, because most of the vegan foods contain nuts and seeds, and you know these are essentially the babies of the plant, and the plants want the seeds to like make it through your digestive system so they can grow into trees or plants or whatever. And so the problem with these anti-nutrients is that they like latch onto other nutrients. They can also damage the lining of your stomach. And yeah, I thought that I would be able to kind of like limit these symptoms by sprouting and by soaking and all this stuff. And you know, I definitely did, but it just wasn't enough when I was eating an entire diet of vegan food. So I permanently gave up on veganism. I don't, it's not necessarily impossible, I think, to get enough nutrition on a vegan diet, but I think it just depends on who you are. And for me, it just was like I reached this moment where I just had to be really honest with myself about whether I was accomplishing the things that I wanted to accomplish long term. Like not just these like little spikes where I felt good, but where I could be like consistently productive, consistently creative and focused and feel strong and not tired. And yeah, so I went back to integrating meat into my diet. And actually, the diet that I'm on now is pretty similar to my raw vegan diet. I just have included a few cooked vegan foods and some ethically raised meats that are not factory farm, which we'll talk about. I kind of want to do a video where I talk about what I eat in a day with like pictures and recipes and stuff like that because I'm pretty satisfied with my diet right now. I feel like I've solved a lot of the problems that I've had. But for now, I'll just kind of go through it really quickly and talk about what I'm eating. So when I start out in the morning, usually it's just like filtered water and tea. And then I also have some veggie juice that I make with celery and ginger and lime and fennel. And then I put that into my Nama juicer, which I really like, which I use every single day. And then it makes this like really delicious, tangy, spicy juice that gets like my digestive juices flowing. And then normally like I'll go out on a walk and then that like increases my digestive fire even more so that when I get back, I'm just like ready to like plow through some food, some dense nutrient heavy food. And this is like completely opposite of the way that I used to eat because I used to start the day with like cereal and coffee and then I would just go like, and then I would crash almost immediately, like an hour or two later. But anyways, when I get home, I might do some work or I might eat. It just depends. Like in the winter, sometimes I won't fast as much because I'm just burning through so much energy because it's cold and whatnot. But normally I'm eating breakfast around 10 a.m. And I don't have any solid food before that. Like I said, I just have juice and teas. Alkaline teas are great. Acidic things, especially when you're fasting, can tend to bother your digestive system. But my first meal of the day is usually some raw sprouted granola. I get this brand called Go Raw, and I've also made it myself. But my sprouting trays were like rusting right now, so I'm trying to find like a good replacement for sprouting so I can get back to that. But anyways, it's like sprouted buckwheat and sunflower seeds, and I make my own raw fermented cacao chocolate, which is really amazing. That's a good alternative to coffee because when you ferment cacao, it has only like 2 to 3 milligrams of caffeine versus 90 to 100 for coffee. So you get that like coffee type taste without any of the caffeine or the stress, or the crash. So anyways, my granola also has raw coconut yogurt that's fermented, and what else? Coconut flakes and raw fermented cacao nibs. So that's really good. Like I said, I'm still really enjoying raw food. But then after that, I've been having some quail eggs. And chicken eggs have historically caused like serious problems for me. And I know that they cause problems for a lot of people. It's one of the major allergies. And they just seem to be like little bacteria factories. Partially it's chickens and partially it can be, even if you're having them from like a good small farm that is not, using antibiotics or any other nasty stuff and free range, you could still have problems with chicken eggs, which I have. So anyways, I found this place called Northwest Quail Farm, and they make freeze-dried quail eggs. And it comes in like a powder here. It looks kind of like nutritional yeast, honestly. But then you can just mix this up 1-to-1 with water, some filtered water, and then you just cook it. You can scramble it or you can bake with it like you do with normal eggs, and it tastes really delicious. It has kind of like a more gamey flavor than regular chicken eggs do, and I don't seem to have any problems with them. Like I've had so many times where I've had chicken eggs and then I end up having like diarrhea or throwing up, and yeah, just not good times. But I think the other thing, other than quail eggs having tending to have lower bacteria, is that when you freeze dry the eggs immediately, it prevents them from being like sitting around in a grocery store or whatever. And it's a great van life food, honestly. I'm like really looking forward to going off grid and having some solid source of protein. But the other thing that's really good about quail eggs is that they're smaller compared to chicken eggs. So you have like the same thickness of shell, but much smaller surface area. So I think they're just protected a little bit better, which is probably one of the reasons why they have lower bacteria. So anyways, after that, I'll have another cup of my veggie juice just to kind of like help the meat digest. I think it's really important to have enzymes with your meat to help it digest. Like papaya is really great, and obviously vegetable and fruit juice, as long as it's fresh. If you're buying fruit juice from the store, the enzymes are going to be much lower because fruit has so much exposure to the air and it starts to oxidize and it breaks down all the nutrients. And so what you're buying, like if you see that naked juice, it looks really good, it tastes good, but there is only a fraction of the nutrients and the enzymes that you would get from fresh juice. So yeah, I would definitely make it yourself. Owning a juicer is a great thing to do if you want to kind of clean out your digestive system and get the digestive juices flowing and hydrate yourself, whatnot. I may have some coconut water. That's also a really good thing to do when fasting, or just like if it's hot outside to kind of replenish electrolytes. And then for lunch, I usually have my lunch around 12, and I'll have like a salad bowl with some like leafy greens, really good source of calcium and fiber, obviously. And then on top of that, I'll put some like elk or bison ground. I get it from North Star Bison, and I buy it in bulk, so it's a little bit less expensive. I think on their website they have a 10% off, which helps too. And you can do a subscription, which also gives you a little bit more discount on your order. So that's one way that I save money with buying super high quality food, is that I buy in bulk and I buy in bulk, and I make sure to subscribe. And you can cancel anytime, but it just gives you an extra discount. But anyways, North Star Bison is totally different than the way that most farms do things, because they take really good care of their animals. They're free range. They're not fed any unnatural grains and things like that. Like the bison is 100% grass fed. And then what's really important is that at the end of the animal's life, like when they're going to kill it for the meat, the owner, I saw they actually made like a little mini documentary about it. The owner shoots the bison or the elk in the field, and then they're processed like at the facility. And this is the way that things were done naturally. Like if you look at Native Americans, they would go out for a hunt and they would just kill the bison instantly in the field. And the way that most farms work is that even if they're free range, even if they treat their animals humanely throughout the course of their life, when they're ready to process the meat, what they do is they load the cattle onto a truck, and then they take it to a meat processing factory. And in that time, the animal becomes extremely stressed out and terrified, because you can imagine they have like no way to contextualize this, and there's like traffic and all of this stuff, and then they're like walking into this area where they're getting slaughtered. So it's not just about ethics. Actually, this is really interesting. But when I went out to my brother's house in Missouri, he has a small organic farm, and he will shoot and trap animals. And he was talking to me one day about trapping animals, and I asked him if he ate the meat, and he said no, it absolutely ruins the meat, because when animals are trapped, their cortisol levels skyrocket, and it just totally ruins the meat. So he doesn't eat it, and this is why you shouldn't eat factory farmed meat. It's not just about ethics, it's that when animals are stressed out, it releases stress hormones, and yeah, it's just not good overall. So I think it's really important to get meat from places where the animals are treated humanely throughout the course of their life. But then the other thing that I may add to my salad bowls is some wild caught salmon. I get mine from Wild Alaskan, another good place where you can subscribe and get a discount for bulk and doing the subscription. That's really good for omega-3s, and omega-3s are something that are kind of hard to get on a vegan diet. You can do chia seeds, but there's some debate about whether it actually is absorbed very well, which is true for a lot of vegan foods, actually, for certain nutrients. But yeah, anyways, I might put some like raw green beans, have some right here. I still really like raw foods, because they're super crunchy. And so, yeah, most of my diet, except for the meat, and I do some cooked wild rice and occasionally quinoa, although it's a little starchy, so not so much. But yeah, I'll put some green beans, some sauerkraut, which also helps with digestion, like a squeeze of lemon, and I'll do some sprouted walnuts. For walnuts, you soak them for 8 hours and you dehydrate them, and this helps release some of the anti-nutrients and kind of like neutralize the nuts and seeds and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and then I'll also have pumpkin seeds with my granola and cashews, also sprouted. Um, and then I'll also have some like watermelon throughout the day. I find watermelon also helps with digestion. It's really hydrating. And then just also drinking like filtered water throughout the day. And yeah, it's kind of working for me. This is probably like the most controversial diet, is like the raw vegan plus carnivore diet. So this video is probably guaranteed to piss off as many people as humanly possible, but I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to thrive, I'm just doing what I need for my body. But yeah, dinner is kind of the same thing. I'll usually just eat another salad bowl, and I'm just kind of keep things simple right now because I'm working on the van and I'm working on YouTube full time and managing my own health problems and the state of the world and whatnot. So like, yeah, I'm not cooking super fancy right now. And it's an important lesson, like if you want to eat healthy, that you don't have to make super fancy things. You can just throw a bunch of food in the bowl, and as long as you have, some carbs, some protein, some fat, some fiber, a little bit of lemon or sauerkraut, you can make pretty much anything taste good. And for my other source of carbs, other than wild rice and quinoa, I usually will bake a squash. This is a bit lower starch than some other options. And either I'll put it into my salad bowl or I'll make like kind of like a pumpkin pie filling with cinnamon and ginger and maybe like allspice or nutmeg. And it's kind of like a little dessert. And I'll put some like raw coconut yogurt or fermented coconut yogurt mixed in there, and it tastes really good. And yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of my daily food intake. I also will have like chia. I might put that into my granola, or sprouted pecans, or just other other nuts and seeds and stuff like that. But overall, I feel pretty balanced. I have sometimes where I get depressed and I'm not as productive, but overall, if I look at my productivity from the past year, it's like I did exactly what I wanted to do. I saved up for my van. I bought my van. I'm like making progress on all the steps that I need to do to get where I need to be able to live, full time in my van and travel and whatnot. I put all the windows in, put the fan in, put the floors in. And my income's going up on YouTube. In the spring, I already surpassed the poverty line, I was kind of stuck at that for like years, just because my diet wasn't right. I didn't have enough energy. So I finally got that kind of squared away. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers. So yeah, there are some struggles for sure. I'm still dealing with joint pain, which is the one that I haven't really been able to figure out yet. But the theory is sort of like, I think that I have like deteriorated nerve coatings, demyelination. So essentially it feels like my entire body is way too sensitive to everything. It's like all of the wires in my body don't have enough coating. I think that's what's going on right now. And I think my body has just been in a state of inflammation and stress for a really long time for a variety of reasons. And so getting into the van is like, I think it's gonna be really important to like lower my stress and get my body down into a state where it can calm down. But yeah, that's the diet that I'm eating right now. I hope it's not too offensive to anyone. But I definitely want to make a video about recipes and how I prepare my food and all that kind of stuff. But it is actually pretty similar to the raw vegan diet video that I made, just with some extra ethical meats. And I will put links down below to all the things that I'm eating if you want to play around with some things in your diet. But yeah, if you have a question about natural healing, diet, etc., let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.